Hello there. I'm coming to you live or pre-recorded, and I'm here to introduce Domestic Theatre, a program in which we discuss film, culture, and everything in between. And today we're discussing Bird Box, Netflix's newest outing in original film, a film starring Sandra Bullock, Trevonte Rhodes, John Malkovich, and other people who are not famous enough to worthy mention. We want to discuss this film because of the controversy. Yes, I said controversy, that it is kicking up among the populace, the plebeians, if you will. We're here to add our patrician opinions to this matter. With no further ado, I would like to introduce myself and the other commentators. I am the Right Honourable Major General Alan Iverson.
And I'm Vado Loco. I'm a piece of coconut water placed on top of a human body. I cannot feel anything below my neck. That's the joke.
Yes.
And I'm Cyberdroid. I don't have a body, I have a brain, and that's about it.
And you'll soon realize, as you listen, Cyberdroid is the funny one.
Hello everyone, my name is Frank. I am part fox and part human boy, and that's about it. Hi.
Alright, well, Bird Box, as I discussed, is the film on the slab today. I have some thoughts about this film. I thought it was alright. I thought it was a bit run-of-the-mill. It was a bit Sci-Fi Channel original film from 2000. It reminded me of two films, one being A Quiet Place, which is the obvious influence, the other being The Mist, as directed by Frank Darabont and based on Stephen King's novel, The Mist. I thought it was shot a bit too TV. The lighting was a bit flat. The characters and the motivations were a bit thin, but the acting was solid. I have more thoughts on this, but I think I'll abstain until we get into a deeper dissection, because if you cut a frog open too soon, you ruin it. Vita?
I liked it. I thought it was a pretty decent movie. The lighting was pretty good, the cinematography was not too bad, the acting was nice, and I really felt a sense of engagement throughout the entire film that lasts all the way up until today.
Well, thank you for stepping on the dick of my thesis, Cyberdroid.
Well, I'm not going to step on your dick. But I do echo your sentiments. I do think it was alright. It has some narrative flaws and some continuity errors, I believe. There are some questions about the threat that is involved. It's not very clear what is happening to these people, but some of the mystery is intriguing, but at the end of the day, I believe some of the payoff is not quite there.
Frank.
Yeah, so I liked it. It was okay. I thought it did remind me a lot of The Happening, and it made me wonder, why is everyone liking this movie but they didn't like The Happening? It's about the same idea, but with different ideas, I guess, going into the mix. It was, yeah, I kind of have some more thoughts about it, but that will be more for a later discussion, but I really want to know what happened to Machine Gun Kelly.
Yes, we last saw Machine Gun Kelly dick deep in his lovely police trainee woman in the laundry room.
Alita Battle Angel.
Yes, Alita Battle Angel. Oh, is that Rosa?
Oh, is that her?
That is the actress.
And they were last seen having sex, and then they were discussed later having stolen the car. And I wouldn't be surprised if Machine Gun Kelly only took the movie to act out that scene, because he needs us to all know that he does, in fact, Now, I don't have many thoughts about Machine Gun Kelly. I will say that it's a real barn burner here in terms of opinions. Cyberdroid and I thought it was okay, and Vito and Frank thought it was okay plus. So clearly, we have some radically different views that we have to cut into. Why don't we start talking about the atmosphere and the acting and how you felt watching it through?
Okay, so my best scene in the film, I think, is when they're all in the car and the proximity alerts are going off. I think, direction-wise, I think it's a very well-directed scene. It builds a level of suspense that I think a lot of horror films that lack that kind of direction don't have. So that was very impressive to see a film just kind of go for it with the atmosphere and the horror of it. But I think at the end of the day, not knowing what the creatures are, or even if they are creatures, at the end of the day, it's hard for me to feel that fear again. I've seen the movie twice now, and seeing that scene a second time.
Yep. To competition.
I'm aware. But rewatching that scene again, I felt a lack of fear because I didn't know what these things really were. But
to me, I felt like the thing of not knowing what the creatures are actually kind of added to the sense of fear and suspense. The entire time, I felt very engaged watching the movie, even though at some point I had to pause to go use a urinal. I was able to return back and put myself back into that scenario of feeling fear, of not knowing what these creatures are, not knowing what's going to happen, and not knowing what is going to become of our main characters.
Well, first, a urinal? Were you not in your house?
I might have been in public.
All right.
I don't like to talk about it.
All right. Yes. What I think Vitacoke was discussing is the famous Lovecraftian fear of the unknown, based on well-known sci-fi writer and repressed homosexual H.P. Lovecraft, and racist, I should say, who wrote about the things that are beyond our comprehension, things we can't fight, like the creature in this could not be shot or burned or blown up with an atomic bomb, but it was nevertheless a threat. So how can you fight against something that wants to kill you, but you can't kill it back? That's the effect of this particular threat.
I think it was effective for the first 2 acts of the film, not knowing what the threat was, if it was a creature or a spirit or a ghost or a demon. That was quite interesting. However, I think a lack of answers towards the 3rd act did leave the rest of the film kind of uneasy.
I just want to talk about that 3rd act for a second, because how many times can a grown woman trip on the same medium-sized branch? She trips like 4 to 7 times on a relatively small branch within 3 or 4 shots of the last time she tripped on a branch.
Also, it's been 5 years since the events in the 2nd act, so she's got to be like Daredevil.
Well, not that she should be Daredevil, but actual blind people use sticks.
Yes,
It's
I agree.
not difficult
Yeah.
to take a stick and just poke it around until you encounter something.
You know when you hold a stick?
Yes.
You know when you see blind people, they just like
Right.
do like left
Yes.
and right on the ground? So then that's what they should be doing. Like,
Got it, yes.
like you should be, pretty much, I agree with Sai, should be just Daredevil, knowing everything. Like, in 5 years, you still tripping and falling?
I actually didn't think of that the first time I was seeing it, because I was thinking about what it means to be a survivor mode all the time. But now that you actually mention it, it does bring up a rather interesting point about what do the people in these survival situations be a little bit more equipped in the art of seeing without being able to see.
And on that point, the children were born into this. So shouldn't they be more capable? In fact, every time they go out, they're used to being under blindfolds. You'd think that they would maybe not develop supernatural powers, but certainly be more well adapted to the situation than they were. I do want to speak a bit about characters. The birds showed up a lot later, but it felt like they were trying to overcompensate and almost justify the amount the birds showed up. In the first quarter of the film, there were no birds at all.
Right.
And then it was introduced as later just to kind of tack it on, which wasn't a big problem for me. The biggest problem for me was some of the logic gaps.
Yes.
We're still talking about aesthetics, so I want to make sure we all get our points in before we move on to the story and the characters, which is more of where I went in and out with this film.
Speaking on the look and feel of the film, I think it's very well directed from a technical standpoint. I think a lot of the cinematography is very beautiful. Like the scenes where Sandra is in the boat and traveling down the river. I think it's shot very well. It's all on location. There's a lack of CG there, so it does have a real tangible feel to the rest of the film. But again, I think a lot of the style falls under the substance. But again, it's a well-directed film on a technical level, but I do believe, it doesn't help the rest of the film.
I agree with that. I felt that the score, the cinematography, and the lighting all helped to really create this cohesive feel to this story. You really felt like you were there with the characters a lot of the times.
One problem I continue to have with this movie, I can forgive everything else, except there is the 5-year gap, right?
Right.
The male character alongside Sandra Bullock, I forgot his name. Is it Tom? Tom.
It is Tom.
Tom.
Yeah.
Spoilers. His name is Tom.
Trevonte Rhodes, this is not spoiler.
Yeah.
Trevonte Rhodes' character.
Yes. So, he should be looking like Donald Glover in the music video. What's the name of the music video?
Oh, This Is America.
This Is America. He should look like him in 5 years. He should not be able to maintain that shape up or that haircut. And there's no way in hell am I going to believe that he cut his own damn hair or that Sandra Bullock's character learned how to cut a Dark Caesar. I rest my case.
Yes, so clearly we know the general ethnicity is involved in play now, but that's good. It's a fair point. They do a lot of... They don't put a lot of grub or dirt on them. They're well maintained. I had a thought, but I've completely forgotten it. So I did have a point. I think it was Cybertoid, perhaps it was Vita Coco, about the lighting. Outdoors, the lighting I thought was quite good, but indoors it felt very flat. It felt like I was watching like a TV show. There was a scene where, obviously, so essentially in this film, if you see these creatures outside, you go crazy, so crazy that you want to kill yourself. And we never see them, the audience never sees them. But the idea is that the characters need to survive by staying indoors, putting on blindfolds, not seeing the creatures. There's a scene where the blinds and all the stuff that's been put to tape up the windows has been pulled off, and light comes in, and I felt like the director or the gaffer or the DOP or whatever should have shot that where the light was shot like the enemy, like it was burning or sizzling. Mm-hmm. And it felt like that moment did not have the tension it could have. It was just shot like very plain. They didn't make the light feel like a threat. They made the character who was doing it, so I'm not going to spoil that, feel like a threat. But they didn't make the actual nature of it, the fact that this creature could come through, feel special. A lot of the indoor stuff was very boringly lit, very flat. The stuff in the grocery store was just kind of generically like Walking Dead, flat lighting, little dark, but not interesting.
Now that you mention it, I actually can kind of agree with your point there. A lot of the times when the characters were in the store, when they were in the house, it felt like everything was just kind of on one plane. I do feel that sometimes when the blinds were being pulled down, especially by fucking Becca from Pirates of the Caribbean, that the kind of overexposure burning out of the lights, that kind of helped create the effect for me. However, I can kind of see your point.
They should have just taken it a step further. Because there was overexposure, but there are plenty of camera tricks they could have done to make it feel, and even sound cues to make it sound like it was like sizzling or dangerous. In the way that Quiet Place is an incredibly well edited, cued sound-wise, incredible sound, and shot film. You don't see the creatures, and you do actually get to see them in that film, but the setup is very strong. There's tension, there's build-up, and when they are attacking the family, it's shot to build tension. There's a lot of dark lighting, there's a lot of not knowing where things are, and quick cuts, and you feel very much the same fear the characters are supposed to feel.
Now that you mention it, I actually think I agree with that. When you feel the tension, when you feel the fear and the suspense of the blinds being torn down, you feel it from the story perspective. You don't necessarily get it from a filmmaker's perspective.
Yeah, so why the hell didn't they try something else? Like, with the guy from Mr. Robot, he dies because he thought he can see the camera through a camera.
See the creature through
the creature through the camera. Thank you. He thought he can do that, and then he ends up dying in the worst way possible, which I still think was the way he died. If it happened in real life, that wouldn't have happened. He wouldn't have died. He would just hit his head.
Yeah, she hits his head on a side table and just died.
Yeah, it just instant
Not even
death.
like brain damage, like needs a wheelchair. Just like, oops, a boo boo, I've been deceased.
Exactly. Like, no one dies like that. Like, I swear, everyone.
I've seen many deaths.
Yes. So. Really?
Yes, I'm a general.
Do you not know of the works of Major General Adam Iverson?
But I do take your point. I agree. Like there are a couple of deaths, and the action scene. There's a scene where Trevonte Rhodes, who plays Tom, is in a shootout with some of these people who, as a bit of a spoiler, but not terribly, can see the creature and not die, but they're crazy and they want other people to see it, so they expose
One
them.
of my favorite scenes.
It was good, but I think the tension, the way it was set up, was really good. The shots and like what's going to be a showdown. The actual combat of it didn't feel like high level. It felt very basic in the shots. Again, everything was done competently, but nothing was done well.
I agree with that. I think a lot of the film, and that scene included, is, again, it's competent, as you said, but it doesn't reach that a level of expertise that a film with this premise should have. And also, just jumping off from what you said, there are men in this world who can see the creature and withstand powers. And women.
And women. And...
gonna backtrack what I said. So going off your point, I do. So there's a group of crazy people who try to take over Tom and
Mallory and
boy and girl, the iconic boy and girl,
John Malkovich.
Wait, when he's gone. Anyway, so they try to take their house and kill him, but they can withstand the creature's power, which I thought was interesting. However, I don't think it explained a lot of what the beings can do. I know that it is part of the mystery, but I do feel as if a lack of answers at times did kind of tarnish my experience with the film.
Yeah, so I had a different interpretation of that. I understand where you're coming from. I think what they were implying is that if you have a normal brain patterns, when you see the creatures, you kill yourself. That's what happens. But if you are insane or mentally deranged or mentally violent, when you see the creature, you are affected differently and you want to expose other people. You're like a carrier to the creature. But what you're getting at, I think, I don't even understand it because how could you, is that I think this film should have had more of a runtime. It felt like it sort of skimmed through a lot of ideas. There's the theme that's explored with how Sandra Bullock's character treats the boy versus the girl. And there's a couple of scenes that touch on that she shows favoritism towards one, her actual child, which I won't spoil. That was interesting, but it didn't get, in my opinion, enough time. There were a lot of themes, a lot of ideas, a lot of characters that were just sort of introduced and then done away with. It maybe should have been a series. Maybe they should have been a TV series instead of a film. I don't know, but it did feel a little bit rushed the entire way through.
See, I remember this one point when John Malkovich's character in the grocery store was like, oh, how come he can see but he's not affected? That, to me, was the point where I was like, okay, at some point they're going to address why some of these people can see the creature but not be affected by it. Be like, oh, everyone needs to see what this is about. That's why I agree with Cyber on his very beautifully worded dissertation on the frustration of the people who are able to see the creature but not be affected by it.
Yeah.
If that makes sense for you at home.
Yes, I think a lot of the answers in the film are not touched upon, and I do agree. I think there is a lot of content that can be made out of this premise, but they kind of crammed it all into one movie, or they were planning on making a sequel to explain it in the sequel, but again, it kind of feels like they just put all their eggs in one basket, but just kind of just drops the basket at some point. And then the whole film is about motherhood, and about a mother who is coming to terms with having children. So it's strange to me that the scene that you brought up is where she favors one of her children over the other. I feel like that should have had more emotional weight because it would have added more realism, more grit, and more of that like post-apocalypse drama that I think we wanted to see. Because I don't want to see this like kind of happy-go-lucky, this more emotionally kind of level story in a post-apocalypse. I think there should be a lot more despair and a lack of hope, but within that despair is the hope, and that's what the characters have to drive forwards. But again, it feels like the whole movie has this like hallmark kind of like soft pseudo darkness that isn't quite deep enough to merit its like post-apocalyptic setting, I guess.
Yeah, I agree with everything you just said. So, why is it called Bird Box?
Huh? A box of birds. You know?
No, but like, they don't do anything.
You remember that one shot where she's carrying a box with two birds in it?
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
I love that scene.
That doesn't justify an entire movie title.
Well, but they had one shot with birds.
Yeah. Again, it does not justify a movie title.
Do you remember the film starring Leonardo DiCaprio on the ocean in the past, where in one scene you see a violin, so it's called The Violin?
I've never seen that movie.
I'm talking about the Titanic.
I see. Because a movie like the Titanic makes sense.
Really quickly, though, I do want to jump on that because there's another post-apocalyptic film that focuses on the relationship between a parent and a child. It's the film The Road, starring Viggo Mortensen. And the parent and the child are the entire purpose of the film. in this film, we waste one, if not two acts on a bunch of characters in the house in the beginning that have nothing to do with the children. And we see the children in these flash forwards, we see them at the end, but there's so little of the movie that if it's going to be your theme, you have to focus on it. You can't just deal with these fun characters and these neat characters and these bigger named actors and then switch to these children who we're supposed to care about when you haven't shown them. It's the same thing with the Burge. They're like the Burge. They've been introduced as a theme, but not in practice. Bird Box or children not being the theme?
Wait, what's the name of the movie?
The Road.
The Road,
yes.
Is it about a road?
They're traveling on a road.
Okay.
It's really about the son and the father. And the gun with a couple bullets because, he's going to kill the son.
Okay, yes. So that's fine. The movie title, because it's based on a setting, which is the road, because they're on the go. Now, Bird Box is...
You're really mad about that.
Bird Box. I hate shitty movie titles. And it is the worst title for a movie.
That's
I don't care.
Just to be fair.
They're not a character. They're somewhat of a plot device, but they don't save the day. They don't make anything better.
Exactly! That's exactly one of my biggest frustrations with this film. Is that you see the birds in the cages, you see the birds in the box. You think, oh, there's supposed to be some sort of thematic connection there. But no thematic connection is established. So it begs the question, why the f*** is this movie called Bird Box?
So, alright, but let me counter that. Why is Rogue One called Rogue One? There's a ship called Rogue One in Rogue One, a Star Wars story, that is mentioned in the last act. Nightmare on Elm Street doesn't have to be on Elm Street. It could be called Nightmare on Grove Street. Titles are titles. They have to stimulate the ape brain to have people buy tickets, not just use their AMC Stubs app to cheat the system. We need to put fat, bloated Milwaukee ashes in 4DX sheets so that it can shake and they can be like, oh, that was a good movie. I'm going to write about that on my Facebook with my 50 friends who are all also moms, and the place where I'm going to born is where I'm dying. You've got to sell tickets to these people, right? You've got to make something catchy, right? There are movies that have something to do with the title. There are movies that are just interesting. I mean, Avatar, I guess she's the Avatar in that he's one of the Na'vi, but you could have called that movie like Na'vi. Jungle Story or Na'vi or something. People wouldn't know. What's Na'vi? Is that an air filtration system? What is that? Is it like a neti pot?
Right?
That's all I've got to say.
Okay.
Someone save me from myself.
So, you were talking about the theme of the film and comparing it to The Road and having a more contained plot. I think Bird Box would have been a lot more compelling and a lot more engaging if it was, again, just about the mom and the two kids, and then all the exposition was told through, like, visual storytelling and not have, like, all these other characters explain what it is, and it's some biological warfare.
Sure.
Like, it just had to be more streamlined, and it had a big cast for no reason. These dystopian films don't need big casts. It just needs a central character to focus on and a central theme to latch onto so that we as the audience can care and feel for these characters, and that is the point. But I feel like in Bird Box, there was so much here are these A-list stars, here's this oddly complex but kind of simple plot, here is this creature that you never really see but is always around, but like you don't quite get a sense of it. Like, I don't know what this is.
I think this film is trying to check all of the bird boxes. For example, they have a big cast because they want a big death count. Because they want you to be like, oh, well, who's going to die? And they all die, and that way the stakes feel higher, right? There's a lot of things in this film that just feel like they're checking all the first couple of scenes where she's pregnant in the hospital infuriated me. The dialogue was terrible.
It was.
She's in her house, her sister shows up, he's like, well, you always were the rebellious one. Aren't you going to do something and call our parents? I'm like, is this a f***ing student film? Can you have some subtext? You can just show us who someone is. You don't have to tell us. And then the entire way through, it's just rote stuff, basic stuff. You have very one-dimensional characters driving towards a conclusion. It feels like someone might have seen A Quiet Place and thought, well, we need one of those.
If you were to ask me, my biggest complaint with the movie would be, what the f*** are the monsters? Just tell what the f*** the monsters are already! We get it, okay? Oh no, it's about Mallory's character character arc and how she like comes to accept the children's role. We already got that. She's like, oh girl, I'm sorry that I didn't appreciate you more. I'm sorry I cut off your story. I'm sorry I didn't love you more enough. She already got that. But all the time, we as the audience are thinking, what the f*** are the monsters? What do they do? How do they possess the people? Alright, that's all I want to fucking know. Just tell us what the f*** is going on. If you don't understand how to properly do a setup and a payoff, then you need to get the f*** out of filmmaking. What's that director's name? Andrew Bentley or whatever?
Susan Bayer.
Oh, my name is Susan. It's about the character. Oh boy, like fuck the whole post-apocalyptic shit. No one's gonna give a shit about that. Everyone gives a shit about that, Susan. This is not going to go. I don't think it is, Susan. Get better or get the fuck out.
Listen, can I just say, when we first started this episode, you said you liked this film. How have you reversed from liking it to f***ing despising it? Can you explain for 1 second? You went from, oh, I thought it was pretty good, to, Susan, you've got to mortgage your home and sell your children into slavery. How did you go from point A to point Z?
Everything about the film was pretty good, except for one point, Susan.
This struck me as the kind of project that would have worked really well with Netflix's new Choose Your Own Adventure format.
I agree.
Used for Bandersnatch for the Black Mirror special episode. This felt like a place where because it wasn't super engaging, I didn't put myself in the place of any of the characters. If they made it make the choices, if I had to make the choices watching it like a Choose Your Own Adventure type thing, I think I might have been more engaged with it. Like, do I go back for the girl or do I do this or that? Choosing formality, it could have been much more interesting, but it was just
cool.
Very plain. Yeah, I think that'd be great.
Do I look? Do I not look?
Do I look? Do I not look? Do I open the door for the person who's knocking? Do I trust them? Do I not? Mm-hmm. That would be very interesting, but it's just what it is, which is fine.
Do I cast Machine Gun Kelly in my movie?
So there are a lot of characters that are introduced, and they're in this house like for no good reason other than we need characters, and then it just kind of moves forward, and it's fine, but it's not great. I think this was the wrong format for this project. I think it could have either been a series or an interactive adventure or something, but a movie, it just didn't fit quite right.
Yeah, so it's a movie with a bad title. I can't get over that. I'm sorry. I don't know what to say.
I mean, Frank, that's a lot of hate for that title.
Yeah. And if I'm being truly frank, how did he keep his shape up?
I think the movie makers have to know the answers themselves.
Boom.
And in Bird Box, I don't think they do. In Quiet Place, I think they know the answers. A lot of films you see with mysteries, they don't answer the mysteries. You still get the sense of the confidence with which the story is told, that the people behind the camera knew the answer, but not telling you was the point.
Right.
In this case, it just felt sort of like, Mm-hmm. And with that highly profound statement, we end this first episode of Domestic Theater. Thank you. I have been Brigadier General Alan Iverson.
I've been Vital Loco.
I've been Cyber Droid.
And Frank.
And we thank you for your time.
Ah!